Yeah, also a very good morning from my side. Actually, I would like also to welcome to our presentation the delegation from Mozambique, and also pointing out that the mayor of Nampula is here, which is a great advantage also to discuss further. Moreover, I'd like to mention that I was practicing on my cough all night, and I hope I brought it to perfectionism. So I'm sorry if my voice is not very well. And just for the translators, I do speak English with a German accent plus a French nose. It's still English. So, coming from all the research done and trying to come up with a solution to what kind of pattern, what kind of urban form is actually the more sustainable, we had to find first that this issue about urban planning versus urban processes is very unbalanced still. So what we actually can say is the comparison of the compact city versus a planned expansion is a constructed contradiction. So when you remember our first research question, we were not able to say this is more sustainable than the other. We had to say in the end, expansion can be a very important precondition for getting a compact city happening on a later stage. But that means you need very clearly plot sizes, and you need a good control of this kind of expansions. So if you expand a city, whatever we would call wisely, we can compact it afterwards. But then again, looking into the realities of Mozambique, we should not talk about the ideal processes, we should talk about the real processes. And the real processes unfortunately show us that there is too much at stake in the urbanization. So we can't yet come up with a sustainable form of urbanization. So we also have to admit that looking into all those different ideal concepts of spatial organization, we don't have one that is sustainable for urbanization. Urbanization is not sustainable, full stop. It can be organized in a way that it can sustain in the future for the urban populations. But we have to go through something that is quite negative and that is quite strongly impacting on Africa, and we have to be much more aware that there is costs and benefits that we cannot put into one single concept, which is, for example, the compact city. Actually, there was a very nice spatial concept in the beginning of the 20th century, 1905, from London, Ebenezer Howard, talking about the garden city. What we can see in Mozambique is a bit the concept of the garden city. People have their plot, people have their urban agriculture around. People live in the city while they are not. So that is a thing that is at the moment the reality. We have to see this as a pattern of urbanization that is real, and we have to see how much would this impact negatively and positively on the future building of cities. So what we are saying is that the costs and benefits of growth scenarios have to be still evaluated. And also talking about urban agriculture is an essential part of the livelihoods of a huge amount of settlers, not only in Nampula, but I assume in most of the African cities still. So you have a number of people that live on urban agriculture. You have a number of people that would commute to distant places without having too much negative costs implied with this. So the cities at the moment are expanding a lot, and we have to see how this is going to impact on the future development. So also the last point of this one here, we believe at IHS that we need to discuss, it was said before, it was said yesterday, we need to discuss some kind of urban form that is more African. We cannot come with European concepts, we cannot come with a westernized ideas of a compact city or a smart city or a sustainable city and just put it to the African context. I do say there is a right for African cities to have its own concept. So very briefly, our conclusions. We have a 200 pages report. You're all welcome to download it very soon, I guess, from Cities Alliance. One thing that immediately came out of our report, there is a dysfunctionality of benefits. The benefits of dysfunctionalities. That means, at the moment, the land market works. We have informal land markets, we have government-tolerated land markets, we have sort of illegal but okay land markets, and all those land markets do what they have to do. They provide people with housing. So great, everybody gets his houses. The poor people are served, rich people are served, everybody can go get what they need. They can live in the city, and everybody else is in the provision, everybody benefits from this too. The government officials benefit from it, the speculators of course benefit from it, the intermediaries benefit from that. So everybody has its share in this functionality of an urban plan. Because the formal plan, the formal system doesn't work, we have a replacement system, we have a parallel system, and this system works very well for everybody, but on a short-term basis only, because it harms the city on a long-term basis. So everything that happens nowadays with buying land in an informal market and then having big plots, having very dispersed sprawl patterns in the city will harm the city in the long run, because the municipality is already yet not able to provide infrastructure for everybody, because people would buy their lands very far outside, because that's where the informal land markets are. Don't want to go too deep into this, and I think I'm running out of time. So, urban process impact more. I think that's also very clear. That's standard in most developing countries. Urban planning is following the real scenario. Urban planning is a posterior attempt to regulate what has been done informally or in a process that was not controlled by government. So that's again something that was very clear to us. Urban processes, as in all the interactions. If you think about the different interactions, just for getting housing, you can, in Mozambique, everywhere else, you can rent housing, you can buy housing, you can squat, you can co-share, you can co-produce. There is endless numbers of possibilities to acquire your housing. So all these are urban processes that have a direct impact on how the city looks like. And this is the urban form, the urban morphology coming out of this. Yeah, that's very clear. I said before, urbanization itself is not sustainable. So we do have a situation where urbanization is not, also politically, also nationally, is not addressed adequately. It's not sufficiently addressed. There has to be much more. I was very hopeful after hearing yesterday's ministers talking. It is a priority. It should be a priority in Mozambique. And now I'm getting actually into political speech, which is not my point here, so I'm continuing to. Entry points, yeah, just staying political. There is possibilities to change this. That's also what we wanted to deliver as a message to this audience. Yes, again, sorry for that, policies. Policies is the only thing that would help to organize the interactions between the different stakeholders. Only that way, that if the rules of the games are defined, if it's clear who can do what and what is the long-term impact on these actions, then you can plan cities. You cannot plan them with the master plans that Els has shown before. You cannot plan them by deciding on a visual or a concept, a spatial concept. That's not enough. It has to be a game, it has to be policies, and local economic development was mentioned. Local economic development is one of the key driving forces of urbanization. So we have to look where are actually all those local economies located and what is about agglomeration of benefits. We tried to demonstrate that there is no or not sufficient agglomeration of benefits yet. And of course, we got a lot of feedback like, how can you say cities do not provide agglomeration benefits? They do everywhere. Yeah, they do to some extent. But if you don't have a local economic development policy in place in the cities, and you have an industry can settle wherever it wants, no matter if there is infrastructure provision or not, the agglomeration of benefits do not happen. There is no diversification of the industrial sector in Mozambique because urban is not planned sufficiently. 2 more minutes. Yeah, the benefits of implementation, I think I mentioned that. So just as an outview, also to contribute a bit what kind of ideas could come up, and I think it was also said by other research groups, there is plenty of things we can research. We have to research further, but we have to be also very dedicated on the areas we want to identify and how we want to approach them. So very clearly, forecasting urban growth sounds stupid. Sounds like, okay, yes, let's forecast urban growth. We have the numbers. Yeah, we have the numbers, but we don't have the spatial configuration of it. We know that urban areas, cities in Africa, urbanize differently. They have different kinds of magnets. They attract different people. And this, again, impacts a lot of the urban form, of the shape of the city. So we have to forecast where urban growth is happening, what kind of urban growth, what are the attractions, what are the benefits to go to the city and live there. That implies that you have to investigate the access to land. What kind of land is provided, what kind of land is offered to the people coming to the city, and also what kind of land is offered to the people living in the city. Because then you talk about compactness. Then you talk about, I give up my big plot, I give up my urban agriculture, and I go to the next stage, and I go into an economy of agglomeration benefits where I live in a department, maybe in a compact city, but then I have other benefits. So it's a trade-off. Identifying the appropriate density to an African context, again, I think the compact city alone or compacting cities does not yet work. Maybe someday in the future. Maybe it's also just a very European ideal that we try to sell to the world. But there is a certain ideal densification. And that is for any areas, for mixed use, for residential areas, you have a certain benefit from the density, and this is known. Human settlements are dense because of this, so it's quite clear that we can define appropriate densities. But again, we have to be very diverse about this. We have to be city-specific. And then the financing mechanisms, that's again very important and often left out. A huge precondition, it was mentioned before, a huge precondition for having the possibility for urban development is, of course, that you finance it, and you finance it wisely. You put the infrastructure where you need it, where you know that your expansion will happen, where the cities will grow into. So you can very nicely control, steer, monitor, incentivize the possibilities of urban growth by wisely financed infrastructure. Plus, you get a lot of back. Because I think that was also said before, but it's really very clearly, there is a very nice article, Urban Perestroika. Cities do provide income to countries, so we have to turn this around. And we have to see how the urban form can contribute to a better capture of this income, of the surplus that cities do provide. Good, that is the research. We were very proud to have this done in cooperation with the University of Lurio, Universidade de Lurio, which is a university in Nampula and which has since a few years also a faculty for architecture and urban planning. So we engaged with the students, and the research that Els was demonstrating, the questionnaires, etc., was done in cooperation with the university and with their students. So that was actually also something pointing into the direction. I wanted to mention also what Richard Slater said yesterday. It is a big need of training more people. The municipalities need more staff that is capable of understanding spatial development. And this is actually something that is happening a lot in Africa, and I think there should be much more of this, that you have good urban planning training institutions to provide good people to the municipalities. So we worked with them. And also we were very happy to get 5 different African countries together for an urban national research forum that we conducted in Maputo, also to discuss research. And again, from just putting different countries together, we had a lot of new ideas for new urban research agendas, which we will share in our reports. Thank you so far, and I take over my time.